wisdom texts, including the Bhagavad Gita and Ramayana. Prabhuji is author of World's only daily blog on Bhagavad Gita, GitaDaily.com, where he has written some 5,000 articles on the Gita. Prabhuji is an invited speaker at TEDx, World Peace Conference, UNESCO, Intel, Google, Microsoft, Salesforce, Stanford, Princeton, Yale, Harvard, MIT, and Cambridge. And Prabhuji has typically gives around 400 talks across 100 cities in 4 continents every year. So when I read the last one, my mind was kind of blown away. So we are so fortunate to have Prabhu, and please welcome Prabhu by chanting Hare Krishna mantra. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare.
So we will continue the game in the middle or the end of the session once again. You can keep thinking of words. I'm grateful to be here with all of you today. And today I'll speak on the topic of display. So are you recording? Both are coming properly? Do you need to move somewhere here? Yeah. In between somewhere? You don't need this. Is it coming to the projection? How was it coming?
No, it was coming through HDMI. Yeah, through HDMI. HDMI, yeah.
I thought.
It will come.
It will come. Yeah.
Okay, fine. Thank you. Okay. Fair enough.
You fine?
So today I'll speak on the topic of making plans in bhakti. That when we practice bhakti, should we make plans? One aspect of bhakti is that Krishna is the supreme controller, we are not the controller. We are discussing the Ramayana when the Vanaras went to Lanka. They started off for Lanka. And Hanuman specially went into Lanka. But did he have a plan? He just charged in when Arjuna fought the battle at Kurukshetra. Did he have a plan? So, sometimes when we make plans, they work. Sometimes only. Most of the times we make plans and the plans only make us work. And what we do doesn't seem to happen, and then we get worked up by that. So we will look at this verse from the Bhagavad Gita. This is from my latest book. This prayer is inspired by the Bhagavad Gita. So I have taken the Gita's verses and rendered them in the form of English poetry, and then we are having some prayers. So are all of you able to see this from there? I'll be writing and drawing some things. If you want, some of you can come a little closer, and those behind can come inside also. So, bless me, my Lord, to trust your infinite plan beyond my finite vision. This Krishna is speaking in 4.5. Bahuni me vyatitani janmani tavacharjuna tanyaham veda sarvani natvam vetta parantapa. The Lord said, many births have passed for you and me, O Arjuna, though you fail to see. I recall them all so vast and true, but you, O scorcher of foes, have no such view. So Krishna is telling us here that he has a much bigger picture of reality. And so, do we have another mic by any chance? Or no? So I just enlarge this, since we would like some of you to read it. You can raise your hand who would like to read it also, loudly. Yes, please. One paragraph here.
My dear Lord, in this world it is impossible to forget my finiteness and limitations. Whenever things go against my will, I can do nothing to stop them. I am reminded of my finiteness.
Yes. Yes, please. Yeah, I'll explain something and then you can read. Thank you. So, when we go through life, it's easy initially to believe that we are in control of our life. That initially a small baby is completely helpless. And yet, when the baby cries, the mother or the father or the caregivers run and take care of the baby. And thus, the baby starts thinking that, yes, I have some control. And for the baby, the means to control is through crying. Now, as the baby grows, the baby may learn to talk and communicate in other ways. So, in the world where we function, we are always subjected to things going against our will. Somebody may say, I am happy in life. And a philosophical person will tell him, I'm happy that you believe that you are happy. What does that mean? Actually speaking, if we consider distress, distress has a simple definition. Distress has a simple definition. Prahlad Maharaj defines this in the Srimad Bhagavatam. Yasmat priya priya viyoga sanyoga janma shokagdina sakala yonishu dahiyamanaha. He says in this world there is priya. What does priya mean? Beloved. As a noun it means beloved. As an adjective means like, what we like, likeable. Priya, and then the opposite of priya is apriya. Apriya means unlikable, what we dislike. Now, there are two words in Sanskrit. There is yoga and there is viyoga. So what does yoga mean? Connection. So what we want is, we want yoga with the priya. That what we like, we want to connect with it, we want to get it. Say, if we go to a particular place, we want to meet, like a particular person, we want to meet that person. And there's some people we don't like. Broadly in the world, there are two kinds of people. Some people bring happiness wherever they go. And some people bring happiness whenever they go. So now, if there is a second kind of people, from them what we want is viyoga. I want to keep a long distance from this person. Now, if we can do these two things, then we can get some happiness. Basically, I can avoid trouble, I can gain pleasure. Then I'll be happy. However, the problem is that life doesn't work this way. Life often gives us not yoga with the priya, but viyoga. So what we want, we don't get it. And instead what happens is, what we don't want, that comes into our life. So that which is apriya, we start having yoga with that. In that way, we end up feeling distressed. So the priya is forced into our life. With the priya we have yoga, that means it goes away. And yasmat priya priya viyoga sanyoga janma. With the priya there is viyoga. What we want, we don't get it. It goes away from us. And what we don't want, that is what ends up coming close to us. That is what ends up happening to us. And these two are the essential definition of distress. So now, if we look at this definition of distress, we will understand that nobody in the world is immune from distress. Because no matter how wealthy somebody becomes, no matter how powerful somebody becomes, no matter how popular somebody becomes, no matter how talented somebody is, still they will have things happening to them that they don't want to happen. And they will have the things that they want to happen not happening. Sometimes this happens to very popular people. Now, if somebody is very popular, they may be praised, but they'll also be criticized. Nowadays in social media, if anybody has become very popular, just writing something about that person, writing something controversial about that person, that is a way to just gain some views. So what happens is, to the extent we get fame, to that extent we'll also get infamy sooner or later. So the world is a place of dualities. Kabhi khushi, kabhi gum. So this just goes on and on. And that's why we get the likable sometimes, but we don't get it sometimes. And sometimes we can avoid the unlikable, but many times we can't. So now, on one side, when this happens, when distress comes in our life, one response is frustration. Why is this happening in my life? I didn't want this, why is this happening? And that's a completely understandable response. However, that response can sometimes be very limiting. Because, okay, it has happened now. And there is not much I can do about it at this particular point. So when something distressful, something unlikable, unwanted has already come in our life, at that time, when we start just asking, why did this happen? Why did this happen? Why did this happen? That just burns us up from within. Some of you noticed that I need crutches for walking. So when I was 1, I got polio. My mother took me to a nearby clinic. We were staying in a small town in Maharashtra. And the clinic was supposed to give me a polio vaccine. But the previous night, the fridge where they had kept the vaccine had a power outage. And the attendant didn't notice that. So I was given that vaccine. And because the temperature had risen, the germs had multiplied. And instead of preventing the polio, that vaccine ended up causing polio. Now, I don't remember any of that. I was just 1. I was told that I was just learning to walk and I fell down. And I could never walk after that. But my first memory of this was I was about 2.5 or 3. And at that time, some distant relative had come to our home. And she was consoling my mother, saying, "It's so sad, your son got polio." And I remember my mother's voice, very calm, clear, confident. Whatever he lacks physically, God will provide him intellectually. Now, I don't know why she said that. At the age of 2.5 or 3, had I shown some intellectual signs, or it was her hope? Maybe it was Krishna speaking through her. She soon passed away after that, so I didn't get the chance to ask her. But somehow that stayed with me. That God will provide intellectually. Now, initially I didn't really focus on the God, I focused on the intellectually part. So as I started studying, I noticed that I could remember things quickly, I could grasp things fast, I could articulate things well. And then, on one side of me, I felt that because I could play outdoor games like other kids could play. So I could say that I didn't do anything to deserve this physical disability. But then another side, I didn't do anything to deserve this intellectual ability also. So ultimately, life is unfair. That is just the fact of life. However, this life being unfair is the small picture. In the small picture, life is unfair. However, if we take that same and make it to the big picture, life is unfair. However, in the big picture, life is fairly unfair. What do I mean by fairly unfair? That in some things, we get less than what we deserve. In some things, we get more than what we deserve. We all may have experienced that we We had some exam, some interview, some task. We worked very hard for it. And still we didn't do well, at all well. And it feels so unfair, I worked so hard for it. But we all probably have some experience when we didn't really prepare much, we studied only a little bit, and that very thing came for the exam and we did very well. So sometimes we get less than what we deserve, sometimes we get more than what we deserve. If we work in a company, sometimes if we work big time on a project, and then when the project is successful, somebody else steals the credit. And our name comes just as a footnote among the acknowledgements. It's so unfair. But sometimes it happens that we join a team which is working on a big project and it is nearly in the final stage of the project and the project becomes spectacularly successful and we are celebrated as a part of the winning team. When India won the World Cup, there's one player who didn't play a single match. And yet his picture was there, all the World Cup winning photos. World Cup winning team photos. So what happens is, life is in the big picture. Is it unfair? Yes, but it is, in the big picture, fairly unfair. So, one aspect, one very important and often underspoken aspect of practicing bhakti is that it expands our picture of life. We tend to see our life from our perspective. And that's natural. Now, our perspective is valuable for us because that's the first and constant perspective that we will have. So that is not to be rejected ever. However, the problem is when we make our perspective as the only perspective. This is bad and that's all there is to it. This is terrible and nothing will make it less terrible. Maybe, maybe not. So, for me, what my mother did was, okay, one thing was bad, but she expanded perspective. Expanded purpose. Okay, there was some lacking in one area, but there is some provision, some gifting in another area. So when we encounter our limitations, at one level, it can cause us frustration. Oh, this didn't work out to my plan, this didn't work out my desires. But another way of looking at it is that maybe there is a bigger picture. And okay, I don't like this, still it has happened in my life. Maybe there is something bigger going on over here. So that openness to a bigger picture, that is the essence of curiosity. Athato Brahma Jigyasa. In the Vedic tradition, Shraddha or faith is important. However, more important than Shraddha is Jigyasa. Jigyasa is curiosity. So what is curiosity? Curiosity is basically that there are things I know. In life, there are things I know. And they are important. But there are also things I don't know. There are things I don't know. And those things may be more important than what I know. So curiosity means we are aware of this, but we are also open to this. We don't devalue what we know, but we also value what we don't know. So when something goes wrong in our life, basically something goes wrong means that we don't get what we want or we get what we don't want. That's the sense of something going wrong in our life. Now we can look at our assessment and say, hey, this is terrible. Or hey, maybe there's something more going on over here. So curiosity is not just about, okay, watching some Discovery Channel or reading some Wikipedia or asking some ChatGPT some questions. It's good, that kind of curiosity. However, the most important curiosity is about our own life and most importantly, our conceptions about our life. What is going on in my life and how am I looking at what is going on in my life. So, when Krishna is telling Arjuna, Bahuni me vyatitani, that we have both gone through many lives. And I remember those, but you don't. The point of this is, Krishna is making Arjuna aware that there is a bigger picture to what is happening in our life. The philosophy of karma is sometimes seen as a philosophy of judgment. Judgment means that you did something wrong and therefore you will be punished. But while there is some truth to it, what is a much bigger truth is, karma is a philosophy of encouragement. Why encouragement? Encouragement because there are times in our life when we do something good, but nothing good results from it. And then we may start thinking, what is the use of doing anything good? But it's not like that. When we get results in our life, normally we would think of the idea of karma as that I do actions worth 10 and I get results worth 10. I am polite with someone and that person is polite with me. That's what we would think is the idea of karma. And there is truth to that. However, it may happen sometimes that we may do actions, say, worth 100. And we get results worth 10. And I say, this is so unfair. And yes, it is unfair. However, what karma says is that actually we have our past karma. And from past karma, minus 90 is coming. So 100 from now, minus 90 from the past. And what happens? We end up getting only 10. So the results we get are not just a result of present action. Our present karma, our present action is important, no doubt, but there is also our past karma. Now, the idea of past karma contributing to present results is not something utterly unfamiliar for us. Say, two young people start playing a musical instrument. Both of them start playing a drum or a mridanga. Now one of them has practiced for say 100 hours and the other has practiced for 100 seconds. Just pick it up. Now both of them start playing. Now both of them may actually be moving their fingers on the drum. But what happens is, when the person who has played for 100 hours, the audience will say more. And for the person who has played for 100 seconds, the audience will no more. Why? Because the sound that is coming is not just a result of what was played at that particular time. Or rather, what is played at that particular time is affected by how much we had played and practiced previously. So we may be polite with someone, but that person may be mean to us, or may be cold with us. What a weird person. That's possible, but maybe in the past we had been cold or mean to that person. And maybe we have a friend from childhood and we meet that person after many years. And then we find that we are nice, but the person is very cold and standoffish. And then we tell you, in your child you did like this too. Childhood you did like this too. Oh, I don't remember it. I'm so sorry about it. And because of that past, what is happening is, the result we are getting is not just a result of our present actions. So now, the bigger picture is provided at one level by karma. So, this is karma can be negative, sometimes it can be, past karma can be also positive. Sometimes we may do action worth 10 and we may get result worth 100. And that is because from our past, plus 90 is coming. So we all have this experience. Sometimes we get less than what we deserve. Sometimes there are some people who just seem to dislike us. And no matter what we do, they just don't seem to be pleased with us. But then we may also find that some people just like us. Maybe when we are growing up, maybe there's some bully in our school. But maybe there's a teacher who liked us. And the teacher went out of their way to help us. We all, if we look back in our lives, we can think of people who were kind to us. And maybe we did nothing to deserve that kindness, but they just were kind to us. So, again, life, when we learned, earlier what I said is life is unfair. So, it is unfair when we are looking at it from the small picture perspective. But when we get a bigger picture, we understand that, okay, it's not really unfair. There's something more going on than what I was thinking was going on. So, this perspective of past life and the karma that comes with it is meant, as I said, going back to this point, it is not meant for judgment. It is meant for encouragement. Judgment would mean, you have done terrible things and you're suffering for those terrible things now. The focus of karma is that if I am doing the right thing right now, even if the results are not coming, that's just because I am going through a phase of negative karma. It doesn't mean that doing the right thing is worthless. Doing the right thing has value, and when this phase of negative karma will get over, then the things will turn out to be good for me. My actions will have results. Have any of you heard this term Midas touch? What does it mean?
Everything you touch turns into gold.
Sorry?
Everything you touch turns into gold.
Yes, everything you touch turns into gold. So, I was in North Carolina now, and a boy came to me, the college student, he says, it seems I have the reverse Midas touch. That I get into a good project, and as soon as I get into the project, it seems to crumble. So I started, sometimes people are too much in their head. So I had to get them out of their head. I think I got the reverse Midas touch. I told him, don't be so proud. No, it's just you are going through a negative phase at present. And it happens sometimes. Maybe at that time, if we are going through that phase, people don't touch too many things. Don't try too many big projects at that time. The phase will end. So basically, this is one level of a big picture. So sometimes we make plans and they don't work. There's no use in making plans. But sometimes we make plans and they work. They may not work exactly the way we want. Sometimes they work better than what we expect. So karma tells us, never become discouraged. Our actions matter, even if they don't seem to matter. Our actions matter always. So understanding this is itself very encouraging. So this is where when the Gita says, be detached from the results. It is not telling us don't care for the results. It is saying recognize that the results may not come immediately. So in that sense, don't define your self-worth solely by the results that you are getting. So when we recognize, so the point is when we recognize limitations, we have two options. Either I can just get frustrated, or I can say that there is a bigger picture. Would you like to read? Visible?
While physical reminders of my limitedness are significant, what is even more crucial are the reminders of my limitations at the intellectual level, where I forget even important things, including major incidents in my life. It is staggering, my Lord, that I have forgotten the entire lifetime that I have lived before my present existence. That I can forget something of such significance is an undeniable demonstration of my finiteness.
Yes. So physical reminders, sometimes somebody comes to our home with a big suitcase. And then we wonder, can I pick it up or do I have to ask somebody else to pick it up? So our physical finiteness we are reminded of. Sometimes we are reminded of our intellectual finiteness. We tend to forget things. I was talking with one devotee, he says, I don't just forget things, I forget that I've forgotten things. At least you forget that what happens is, okay, I remember that I've forgotten something. What have I forgotten? But it's like we have forgetfulness of our forgetfulness. And that can be quite a bit of a problem. But again, whenever we encounter limitations, so limitations of any kind, physical or cognitive, intellectual, we can let those lead us to frustration. And as I said, this is understandable. But it is far better that if they lead us to curiosity. Curiosity is, in this situation, not only can I not do everything, but also I can't see everything. So then we have the karmendriyas by which we try to do things. And we have jnanendriyas by which we try to see things. So both of them are limited. So most often what happens is we are reminded of the limitation of our karmendriyas. In our house something is way high up, we may not be able to reach it. Okay, I'd ask somebody else to reach it. We are reminded of our physical limitations. But it's not just in terms of what we can do. It's also in terms of what we can see. So, jnanendriyas are also limited. So, if it leads us to curiosity, then, in fact, this curiosity will lead us to spirituality. Okay, I don't know what is going on in my life. Not that I don't know anything, but there are many things I don't know what is going on in my life. So then, is there some bigger picture? Yeah, who else would like to write this? Yes, please.
So, but my dear Lord, you are infinite and your memory is infinite. That is why your plan for my life is far better than any plan I may make for myself. Please, oh Lord, bless me so that I can be centered on your plan and work accordingly, rather than judging situations solely based on my understanding or their conformity to my plan.
Thank you. Nicely read. Quite a lot of long words over there. Good. So, okay. So, if we understand that although I am finite, Krishna is infinite. And because Krishna is infinite, there is a bigger picture to life. The difference between, say, material vision and spiritual vision. There are many aspects. But in material vision, we have only two options basically. That things are in control, or rather in my control, or things are out of my control. Things are in my control or they are out of my control. Now, when they are in my control, I feel ego. I am so great. When they are out of my control, I feel insecurity. I feel worthlessness. And both of these are unhealthy. Now, for many of us, maybe when we are young and healthy and competent, we have more in our control. As we start growing older, then more and more things start going out of our control. So then, if our sense of confidence and self-worth is based solely on how much we can keep things in our control. There are people who are called as control freaks. Control freaks means what? That lack of control freaks them out. That is just crazy. Things don't work out. Now, we all have a particular way we need to function in life. We may not be able to change it completely. But however, what happens is, spiritual vision gives us the understanding that things are always in divine control. They're always under Krishna's control. That Krishna has a plan and that plan is working. So now, is it important for us to see whether things are in my control or not in my control? Of course, it's important for us to see. However, if that is all that we see, that is not. That will leave us in trouble. Yeah. we look at our vision, but we look ahead to see what is going on in our life and where our life is going. But while looking ahead, we also look up. So when we look up toward Krishna, we are reminded that there is a bigger picture and there's a bigger reality. Although I may not see that bigger picture right now, but there is a bigger picture. So I'll conclude with 2 points here, and then we can have some questions. We'll have a couple of examples also. Spirituality, especially Bhakti spirituality, has 2 aspects to it. One is that in our service to Krishna, we want to do many things. So there is one aspect of transforming. Transforming is where we look at our life, we look at our world, and we see how we can transform it. How we can do things better. What are the things that are wrong and what are the things in our capacity to fix. That's transforming. But bhakti has another aspect, that is transcending. Transforming and transcending. Transcending means, okay, however things may be, they may look good or bad to me, but there is a reality beyond all this. And that is the bigger reality. So, if I'm here, and this is the world in front of me. Now, above me is Krishna. Above me is Krishna. So now, when I engage with the world, that is for transforming. And when I engage with Krishna, that is for transcending. Now, both of these are important. So when we are transcending means we are transcending our vision. Okay, this is how I'm seeing things, but maybe there is a bigger picture. So, ideally speaking, during our day, normally during the course of the day, we have lots of things to do. I have to complete this job, I have to do this thing, I have to do that thing. And it's all about transforming. Things tend to keep going off control, going off track, and you have to fix them. So most of the day is about transforming things. However, at the start of the day, if we begin with prayer, if we begin sadhana, if we begin with some devotional activities, that grounds us in transcendence. Yes, whatever I am going to do today, but I remember that there is a bigger reality. I remember that there is a God in control. And then we work for us, actually speaking, transforming is also for connecting with Krishna only. When we are practicing, trying to do things in our life, that is also in a mood of service to Krishna. So sometimes we can fix some things. Sometimes we just can't fix some things. So we need to look at the bigger picture and accept when things don't seem to be fixable for us. But that doesn't mean that whatever is happening, I say nothing is fixable. If we think nothing is fixable, then it is our mentality that needs to be fixable. Otherwise, we will be in a big fix. So let's look at this dynamic with one incident from the Mahabharata, and then we'll have questions. Now Krishna spoke the Bhagavad Gita to Arjuna. And Krishna tells Arjuna, arise, tasmat tamuttishta yasho labhasva, chitva shatrun bhungshvarajyam samriddham, mayai vaiteni hata purvameva, nimittamatram bhavasau vyasachi. Krishna tells Arjuna that, oh Arjuna, arise and fight. By my arrangement, your enemies have already been killed. Yours is the victory to attain. And Arjuna becomes galvanized by Krishna's declaration. And he says at the end, Karishe vachanam tava. I will do your will. And Arjuna fights. And when he fights, at that time, he has some spectacular victories. But on the 13th day, he encounters a devastating defeat. What happens? Yes, Abhimanyu is killed. Now on that day, Arjuna is challenged by a king called Susharman, who has a large army with him. And there's a plan by which he's taken away from the area of the main fighting. And Arjuna is engaged with those warriors, and then the Kauravas regroup their army and they reveal the Chakravyuh formation. And then there is no one except Abhimanyu who knows how to break in. So Abhimanyu breaks in, but the plan of the Pandavas is that after he breaks in, they will follow. Bhima and Yudhishthir and Nakul and Sahadev, they are all planning to follow. We'll go inside and devastate it from inside. But unfortunately, Jayadratha comes in between. And then he's trapped. Abhimanyu fights heroically. And eventually the Kauravas have to gang up 6 of them together. And that's how they very unfairly and brutally kill the 16-year-old Abhimanyu. That evening, after a long day of fight, Arjuna starts coming back. Now he is unaware of what has happened. But he has a sense of foreboding. Foreboding is something bad has happened. He feels a pit in his stomach. And as he comes towards his tents, that every evening when the warriors come back, there is celebratory music to welcome them back, to raise their spirits. On this day, there is somber silence. Normally, the soldiers would greet him and salute him. On this day, no one is there ready to meet his eyes. The pit in his stomach increases. His mind starts working overtime. What might have gone wrong? And when this happens, he starts remembering the war is a fierce business. And people are screaming and people are yelling, and he remembers that he heard someone, at least he thought he heard, Drona has formed the Chakravyuh. He remembered that he had heard it sometime during the day, but he had been so busy fighting, it had not registered with him. Had they really formed a Chakravyuh? If they had, not only Abhimanyu could have helped, but Abhimanyu didn't know how to come out. Had something happened to him? His apprehensions were making his heart cold with fear. He entered into the tent where all the warriors would assemble at the end of the day. His eyes went first to Yudhishthir. He saw Yudhishthir was safe. And then immediately his eyes went to the throne where Abhimanyu would sit. And that throne was empty. Arjuna didn't want to believe the evidence of his eyes. He looked back, hoping against hope, at Yudhishthir. And now he noticed Yudhishthir's eyes were red. There were signs of tears had flown down his cheeks. Arjuna collapsed on the ground in utter agony. When this happened, when something bad happens, there is a series, almost like a storm of emotions that goes through someone, goes through the person who is afflicted. First was, for him it was shock. Then there was grief. Now, grief was a prominent emotion. But for him at that time there was guilt. He said, shh, he starts calling out, Abhimanyu, Abhimanyu. As Yudhishthir comes forward and starts, with heavy steps comes and with a voice that is choked, starts telling him what happened. Arjuna is thinking, surely when Abhimanyu was all alone, surrounded by warriors being attacked, he must have called out for me. He was just a teenager. When in trouble, a child would call out to his parents. He said, you would have called out to me and fire on me. I was not there for my son. I went for my own individual glory and I let my son die. Shame on me. And then as he was going through it, his emotions, and he heard Yudhishthir's words were, it's almost like a background noise that was there, that was clear, and yet it was something, he just didn't want to believe it. Then he heard about their plan. And then it was blame. He turned towards his brothers and he said, could not one of you protect my son? Are all your weapons just ornaments? Fie on you! And hearing those words, Yudhishthira being flinched back, like there were whips being lashed in their faces. At that time, Krishna came to Arjuna and pulled him into a side hug. He said, "O Partha, in this world, bad things happen to everyone. The wise people and the unwise people. What differentiates the two is that when bad things happen, the unwise people act in ways that make things worse. Whereas the wise act in ways that make things better. Oh Arjuna, look at your brothers. Due to the death of Abhimanyu, they are in pain just as you are in pain. Please, O Partha, don't speak words that will increase their pain." So here, Krishna is taking a very human and humane approach. No, Krishna doesn't go into philosophy. He says, just 13 days ago I told you the Bhagavad Gita. And in the Bhagavad Gita I told Dhiras Tatra na Mohyati. A sober person is not bewildered at death. You already forgot the Bhagavad Gita, what a dumb person you are. Maybe I should have found someone else to speak the Gita. No. So just as our body may get injured, say if I get a fracture in my hand, now I may philosophically understand I am not my body. But at that time, my body cannot lift weights. Isn't it? I may not be my body, but I live through my body. Similarly, I may not be my mind, but I live through my mind. And when something bad happens, that's the mind that sustains a wound. And the more severe the magnitude of the bad that has happened, where is my bag? Some lozenges in it. So the more severe the bad that has happened, the more the injury that is sustained by the mind. So Krishna takes a very humane approach where he says that actually for you, just see what you can do to fix things now. Now, somebody's child dying, it's like the ultimate things going out of control, terrible bad things happening. These things going out of control. So at that time, what does Arjuna do? Arjuna starts thinking, what can I do to make things better? And then he decides that the Pandavas, in an emergency, had made a reasonable plan. But it was Jayadratha who foiled that plan. Therefore he decides that I will teach Jayadratha a lesson. I will kill him tomorrow before sunset. And he takes a series of vows. At the end of which he says that if I do not kill him by sunset tomorrow, then I will enter into fire. Now, on the Pandava side, there's been a mood of gloom. When Arjuna takes this vow, suddenly it becomes excitement and jubilation and anticipation. So that night, that night when Krishna and Arjuna are going back to their tent, Krishna tells Arjuna, "Oh Partha, in great haste you have taken a very difficult vow. You should have consulted me before this. Drona will make the entire army arrangement in such a way that it will be almost impossible for you to reach Jayadratha." And now Arjuna replies, "Krishna, I do not understand your anxiety." And then he speaks two words, two sentences. He says, "You know my power and I know your power. You know my power and I know your power." So Krishna knows our power. That means Krishna knows what things we can control. And we know Krishna's power means that we know that Krishna can control the things that we can't control. And with this understanding, Arjuna's confidence remains. The next day he fights like never before. And we won't have time to go into that whole story. But the key point is that while the Pandavas suffer a terrible loss, on the 13th day, the loss that the Kauravas face is far, far severe. When people are fighting, it's not just who is defeated, but how they are defeated. Isn't it? It's like there's a match between two big rivals. And it's a tennis match, and there's a 5-set match. And the final set is like a long tiebreaker. It goes to 6-6, and then the tie goes to 20-20 and 22-20, something like that. 7-6 is defeated. And then the next match, okay, it was a tough match, I won. But the next match, the player who was defeated, that defeats the other player 6-0, 6-0, 6-0. Complete bagel. Now it's not just a loss, it's a devastating loss. So for the Kauravas, 6 of them have to gang together to defeat Arjuna's son. And then the next day, Arjuna single-handedly enters into the enemy ranks, and the entire army has been arranged to protect Jayadratha, and Arjuna defeats and kills Jayadratha. So from the optics perspective, it is that our entire army couldn't stop one enemy general. Now what hope is there for us to win against such an army? The Kauravas more or less crumble thereafter. The war ends in 4 days. So here, the point is that we're talking about our plan and Krishna's plan. So broadly speaking, everything I speak will be this particular quadrant now. We have our plan, and we have our plan is working, and our plan is not working. Now we have this Krishna's plan. Now Krishna's plan is working, and Krishna's plan is not working. Now can there be a situation where Krishna's plan is not working? No. Even if people are doing bad things, Krishna's plan is still working. So if we are in these two quadrants, that is Maya. So if we start thinking Krishna's plan is not working, that is Maya. And as long as we are in these two quadrants, whatever we do, even if our plan is working, I said in this quadrant, if our plan is working, what will happen is it will lead to pride. And if a plan is not working, it will lead to fear, it will lead to anxiety, it will lead to insecurity. So now we cannot always control whether life will work according to our plan or not. So now, among all these, we could say the best quadrant is this one, isn't it? So my plan is Krishna's plan, or Krishna's plan is my plan, whatever. I'm making a plan, it's working. So we would like to be in that quadrant, but even if we can't be in that quadrant, Arjuna did not want Abhimanyu to die, of course. But through Abhimanyu's death, Krishna had a plan. Krishna exposed the brutality of the Kauravas. Not only the brutality of the Kauravas, also the weakness of the Kauravas. 6 of them had to come together to just defeat one teenager on the opposite side. So Krishna had his plan, it was working. So now sometimes, as I said, we would like to go in the direction where our plan and Krishna's plan is working. But even if our plan is not working, if we remember that Krishna's plan is working, then that itself will keep us safe. So this is where we are transforming things. When our plan is working and Krishna's plan is working. Is this green visible to all of you?
Yes.
And when our plan is not working, Krishna's plan is working. That is when we need to be transcending. Transcending means doesn't mean just neglect and don't care for the situations. But rather, at that time, we recognize that there is a bigger picture. Things may not be working right now. Let me not overreact. Let me not lose hope. Let me just be patient. Let me push on. So, this transcending is what will help us to prevent excessive or destructive reactions when bad things happen. They say, okay, something bad has happened. It'll be there for some time. It'll go. Krishna's plan will work for us. When we learn to transcend in this way, we will stay calm. And when we get the opportunity to start transforming, then again, we'll start working with greater focus. So now, transcending is not just something we can do at that moment. It is something which we have to practice doing. It's if we are regularly practicing raising our vision towards Krishna, then when things start going out of control, rather than panicking, we'll look upwards. And okay, Krishna, I'll do what I can, but even if I can't control this, I know you have got this, Krishna. This is in your control. And gradually we find that for a devotee also, no matter how devoted we become, life will have dualities. But for the devotee, the duality is that sometimes we'll be able to transform, sometimes we transcend, sometimes we transform, sometimes we transcend. But through it, we will actually be going closer and closer to Krishna. So, for a devotee, when we are transforming and when we are transcending, what happens is that the devotee's mood is very different. A devotee does not waver between pride and insecurity. Rather, what happens to a devotee? When we are transforming, we are grateful. Grateful that things are working. Yet we understand that whenever things work in our life, there are so many things that could have gone wrong. But all those things have fallen right place. And that's why things are working. So a devotee is grateful when things work as per the plan. And when things don't work as per plan, we can be graceful. Graceful means we remember that, yes, we are dignified, we are composed. Yes, this is tough, but this is a phase which we will go through. We will overcome this phase. So, Arjuna was graceful. He naturally had his human emotions. He broke down for some time, but he didn't blame Krishna, he didn't beat himself up, he did not just quit. He remained graceful under pressure. So 13th day of the war, Arjuna was graceful. And the 14th day, and finally, Krishna helped Arjuna shoot. Arjuna had fought the whole day and come very, very close to Jayadratha. And at that time, suddenly Duryodhan got 8 warriors to attack Arjuna. He thought yesterday was Arjuna's son, 6 warriors. It's Arjuna himself. He had 8 warriors attacking. And Arjuna felt as if he was surrounded by a ocean of arrows coming towards him from all sides. He was swirling around on the neck of his chariot. shooting arrows and protecting himself, but he couldn't even move a little bit ahead. So close and yet so far. He saw the sun was sinking and he began to despair. At that time, Krishna decided to help Arjuna. Krishna called his Chaitanya Charan and he dispatched it. It covered the sun. And the Kauravas started jeering Arjuna. Hey, you thought you'd kill me? Kill us? You are going to die now. Jayadratha had been hiding like a coward behind other warriors. He came forward with a mocking smile. Should I light your funeral pyre? And at that time, Arjuna in dejection had lowering his bow. And Krishna spoke in Arjun's voice. Arjuna, there is still time. Put the Brahmastra on your bow. Now, Arjuna had questions. And Arjuna knew there's a time for questions. And this is not that time. So he put the Brahmastra and he told him, shoot. Shoot in such a way that it will go and hit Jayadratha's neck and it will carry Jayadratha's head far away to Simant Panchak, where his father Vrudakshetra is performing austerities. And just as Arjuna was about to shoot the arrow, Krishna removed the surgeon chakra. And Krishna said, Arjuna, there is the sun and there is Jayadratha. Shoot! And Jayadratha's mouth was open, mocking Arjuna. And his mouth was open from mocking to shock, to fear, to terror. And before he could do anything, his head just flew into the sky. And Vrudakshetra had done some mystic vows, mystic austerity, and by which he had got a blessing that anyone who causes the head of my son to fall on the ground, that person's head will break apart. So Arjuna did not know this, but Krishna knew this. So Krishna told, arrange his head to go and fall on Vrudakshetra's lap only. So it went and fell on Vrudakshetra's lap. He was in meditation. And suppose you are meditating, suddenly something falls on your head. You look down, hey, it's a head, hey! Yes, it's got up and pushed it off. And as soon as he pushed it off, it fell on the ground and his own head disappeared. So Krishna protected Arjuna not just from the danger that Arjuna knew. Krishna protected Arjuna even from the danger that he did not know. So that is Krishna's bigger plan. And the stories are exciting, adventurous stories from the past. And some of the miraculous aspects and the specifics there may or may not be what happens to in our life. But Krishna can work even without miracles. And Krishna can guide us. So for us, if we make sure that for both bhakti involves both transforming when we can and transcending when we need to. And with both of these, what will happen is this last paragraph. Who would like to read? Yes, who has not read till now? Yeah.
Bless me, O Lord, with the curiosity to see how your plan is unfolding, even when my plan is unraveling.
Yes. Even when my plan is unraveling. Unraveling is disintegrating, falling apart. At that time, also, Krishna's plan is unfolding. So that is the vision that we get through our bhakti. Through our connection with Krishna, through our transcending the world, we get that vision. That Krishna's plan is still working. So I'll summarize what I discussed today. Broadly, our topic was facing difficulties or facing especially reversals in life. The first point I discussed was about how a distress is universal. Distress has a 2-point definition. What is that? What we don't like, what we like goes away. From the Priya we have yoga, and what we dislike, it comes to us. It comes close. We have sanyoga with what we don't want. So everybody will have distress this way in life. Nobody is going to escape that. Life has ups and downs, because of which distress is inevitable. Now, basically, what does it mean here? In the positive things are where things are in control and things are out of control. So instead of having this bipolar kind of vision, which is very limited, what spirituality is about is curiosity. Curiosity that there may be a bigger picture to what is going on in my life. We say life is unfair. That's true. That is our vision. But that's a small picture. What is the big picture? Life is fairly unfair. Yes, you got those words. That sometimes we get less than what we deserve. Sometimes we get more than what we deserve. This fairly unfair is because there is karma involved. That there is actions, this present karma, and then there is past karma. So results don't just come because of present karma, they also come because of past karma. And that's why the whole principle or the focus of karma is not judgment, it is encouragement. That when we are doing present karma, we should be worrying, oh, what wrong had I done in the past because of which I will be suffering. No, if we focus on that whatever I am doing, it will bear results, even if those results don't come right now. And then finally we talked about how one expansion of vision is just looking at karma. And there is past action which is also contributing to the result. But another expansion, so karma is an expansion in the horizontal domain only. In terms of our own vision of our life, my life extended before this life. This is curiosity is in the horizontal domain to look at previous lives. But then we expand our vision in the vertical domain. Vertical domain is where I understand I am here, the world is here, but above me is Krishna. So we connect with the world by transforming. We connect with the Krishna by transcending. So both of them are important. Transforming and transcending. So every day when we are doing a sadhana, then we are trying to transcend. I'm trying to transcend the limitation of the space over here now. Okay. So then here we talk about this diagram. That things is our plan is working, our plan is not working. Krishna's plan is working, Krishna's plan is not working. Now our plan working, not working. So what happens when our plan is not working? We tend to get frustrated. So now Krishna's plan not working, that can never happen. But we feel like that when we are disconnected from Krishna. When we are not practicing bhakti, we are not doing sadhana, we start thinking that Krishna's plan, this whole thing is Maya. So what we need to do is get out of this Maya. So here we will go through pride and insecurity. If my plan works, I am so great. Plan doesn't work, I am so terrible. But for a devotee, when the plan works, we are grateful. Thank you that Krishna, you use me as an instrument. When plan doesn't work, we are graceful. So I discussed the example of Arjuna, how he was grateful. He was grateful when eventually in 14th he was able to kill Jayadratha, and on 13th day he was graceful. So in our spiritual life, we will be going round and round in these. But through it all, we will keep moving closer to Krishna. And even when our plan is unraveling, rather than going into the negative quadrants, lower quadrants, we stay in the upper quadrants. So, what he says, we hold our plans. We have our plans, but we hold our plans lightly. And we hold our Lord tightly. Hold our plans lightly, hold our Lord tightly. That is the way to go through our life peacefully and purposefully. Let us pray to Krishna. My dear Lord, please guide us all so that whenever we go through life, we don't just see things in terms of do I control them or do I not. Let me always first focus on you and your plan. And let me hold on to you, my Lord, tightly. And let me hold my plan lightly so that I can be grateful when my plan works and graceful when it doesn't. Krishna Bhagwan ki Jai. Thank you very much. Are there any questions or comments? Yes.
Thank you so much for explaining the bigger picture. So I have a question regarding, I'm contemplating on the bhakti practice. So when I'm practicing in sadhana stage, so sometimes I'm encouraged by my progress, and sometimes I do something which even though I don't want to, but I indulge in something and I will try to fall down, or if nobody sees, I feel guilty for myself. So how can it be seen? Is it a plan, or it is in my control, or it is plan of Krishna? How can we see it?
So we are trying to practice bhakti and follow some standards, but we lapse or we relapse back. So what do we do at that time? In fact, today morning and tomorrow morning in the temple, I am taking a 2-part series on dealing with guilt. When is guilt healthy and when is not healthy? So today morning we discussed 4 broad causes of guilt. It may be caused by misdeeds, or mistakes, misapprehension, and sometimes even manipulation by someone else. So it's an elaborate subject, but tomorrow morning we'll discuss the solution part, how to actually deal with guilt. But the key point here is that whatever happens, we should stay encouraged in our connection with Krishna. So basically, anything that takes us away from Krishna is Maya, is illusion, is temptation, is distraction. So ideally speaking, if I am here and say Krishna is here, and say some wrongdoing, some lapse, some fault doing on this side. So guilt should come over here as a barrier, as a barricade. So guilt, now this looks like a road. I don't know how to draw a barricade over here. Let's do something else. So guilt should act something like a block for us. So it should block the way and not let us go over there. This is guilt. However, sometimes what happens is guilt ends up over here. So this is not guilt. This is, you can call it as pseudo guilt. This is Maya. So this is anything that discourages us moving towards Krishna, blocks us in moving towards Krishna. That is Maya. So should we feel bad after we've done something bad? Yes. Should we feel so bad that we think, I should just give up the practice of bhakti? This guilt is good. This is absolutely not. This is also Maya. So whatever has happened in my life, Krishna will never abandon me. Krishna is not going to leave my heart and go away. So if I start thinking, I am so fallen that even bhakti can't elevate me, even Krishna can't elevate. That means, yes, Krishna has a plan for everyone, but Krishna doesn't have a plan for me. So that is where we are going into the domain of Maya. thinking that just because we can have a plan for disciplining ourselves also. And sometimes our plan for disciplining ourselves may not work. But rather than becoming discouraged, we see that, okay, still Krishna, I am within Krishna's plan. So we may have to look at what went wrong in our life. Maybe we set a too high a goal for ourselves. And sometimes we may have to take smaller steps up. Okay, that I cannot go up to that standard right now. I can go smaller steps up. That could be one possibility. Another possibility could be that Krishna wants to teach us some other lesson. See, maybe we think, I want purity. I want control over, say, greed or lust or anger or whatever. But sometimes what happens is when we get this purity, that purity may lead to pride. I have so much control over them. These other people, they don't have any control. They suppose it's Ekadashi. And say we are fasting, Nirjal. And while we are fasting Nirjal, we are constantly looking who is going to the kitchen and making water. What an attached person, no sense control. What a glutton. This is actually the avatar of Kumbhakarna only. So, if we are criticizing others like that, then our body may be fasting, but our ego is feasting. And that will not lead to much spiritual advancement. So sometimes Krishna may not let us gain that purity because that might lead us to pride. And then we try and try and try. And we don't get that purity, finally we understand that, Krishna, I can't do it. Because you have to help me. At that time, finally, when we are able to do it eventually, when we understand that I can't do it, Krishna, you only have to help me do it. That will help us develop humility. And then, after that, when we develop purity, that purity won't steal our humility. Sometimes what happens is, on the spiritual path, if we succeed in developing purity too early, then what happens is, it steals our humility. Why? Because I become so proud, I have conquered my senses, others have not. On the other hand, if we fail to develop purity, fail in controlling our senses, then that leads us to humility. And when humility comes, after that when we develop purity without losing humility. So in this way, and this is one possibility, Krishna has a bigger plan. And what exactly that bigger plan is, we may not know that. But we keep ourselves open. And we will learn and grow. Okay? Thank you very much. Anyone last question? Yes, please.
So, in terms of the present day, so every time we do something, we do our 100%, right? That is what is being guided. And when we are doing something, you get a lot of blockers. And sometimes these blockers, I feel it as warnings, and sometimes it is a test of perseverance. So how do we see things, whether as warnings or test of perseverance?
Very good question. Very good question is a very polite way of saying that I don't know the answer. Not necessarily. See, in the Vedic context, there's a lot of focus on dharma. Now, dharma can mean religion. That's not the general context in which it is used. Dharma means it's the right thing to do. What is our responsibility? What is our role over here? So dharma is very much, sometimes although it is thought of as duty, it is more a matter of purpose. This is what I am meant to do. So when we face an obstacle, that raises a question for us. How important is this role? Now, if it is important, I will persist. I'll push through. If it's not that important, then maybe I'll move in some other direction. So, in general, rather than thinking whether this is a test or this is a warning, our focus should be on how important is this. And if we just focus on that, maybe I am giving this too much importance. And this is important, I have to push through. So rather than focusing on the obstacle to evaluate it, focus on our purpose first and then evaluate the obstacle. Is what I'm going to do also going to take me closer to my purpose or will it take me away from my purpose? So that's the first point. The second point is that now we can't know in advance that whether something that we do will necessarily succeed or not. But broadly speaking, after purpose, we need to have a sense of proportion. Proportion means what? In India there is a place called quota, not Q-U-O-T-A, K-O-T-A, quota where students go for studying for IIT. Now I am sometimes invited there to speak in the coaching institutes. I met one boy I met over there. He said he had been preparing for IIT for 6 years. Now IIT itself the degree is 4 years. And he's preparing for 6 years. Now his co-students have already got jobs and he's already settled in a job. So now 6 years to pass one exam to get entry into college. That's not worth it. So sometimes see, that proportion is very easy to understand. But sometimes it may require consulting somebody else. If I'm putting in 100 units of effort and I'm getting only 1% of improvement, maybe then this is not what I'm meant to do in my life. Or maybe this is not what I'm meant to do right now in my life. So we have to have a sense of proportion. So how much effort will it become too much? So how do we know proportion? Generally we look at that thing in the light of other things in our life. Purpose is I'm focusing on this thing. But proportion is I see that thing in the light of other things in our life. And then after we look at purpose and proportion, then we have to decide whether we move on or move out. We push on or we move on the other side. So these are two main factors. Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita that when our intelligence is in sattva, then we can understand what to do. प्रवृत्तिं च निवृत्तिं च कार्याकारे भयावहे बन्धं मोक्षं च यावति बुद्धि सा पार्थ सात्विकी. So look at our purpose, look at the sense of proportion, and based on that we decide. Thank you very much.
Just a follow-up question. So in terms of the proportion which you mentioned, right? So sometimes you get into certain things where you never know how long it takes, right? So only, like, in the case of the example that you given, 6 years and 4 years, if we see it objectively, yeah, we can say that, it is too much. But in that case, like, when do you think is the right amount of proportion to stop that endeavor? Let's say, for example, 1 year, 2 years, for a degree of 4 years, like, how do we see it?
Yeah. So life does not come with any guarantee of right decisions. We have to, in one sense, keep looking at our decision-making process and keep reviewing and refining it. So that's why, as I said, look at that thing in regard to other things. Say somebody wants to succeed in a particular sports. Generally, in the Vedic context, there are things, two broad factors to decide what we should do. It's called as guna and karma. And guna karma vibhaga Krishna says. See, when we have guna for something, then we feel content doing that. Sometimes you might have a child might just like to draw. Just pick up a crayon and start drawing. And just be peaceful. Others just like to arrange some things. Lego toys they arrange. Like nobody wants to, there's nobody to play with them, nobody to appreciate them. That's what they love to do. So there are some things in our life which we just feel content doing. This is what I love doing. And there are some things which we are competent at doing. So when we are content at doing something, that means we get intrinsic satisfaction doing it. When we are competent, we are actually able to make a tangible difference and we get some external recognition also for it. So if we are to persist in something for a long time, then even if we don't get success, we will persist, but at least we should be getting some internal contentment. Sometimes some people work very hard, and in working very hard for something, they make the lives of everyone around them very hard. Don't you know how hard I am working? Don't you know how much difficulty I am going through it? And constantly reminding others. Because what is happening is, in the work, they are getting no contentment. And they're so desperately craving for the external result and the recognition. They feel, I'm not getting joy in this work and I'm not getting the result also. Why am I doing this? And then they take it out on everyone else. So if we are going to persist, then there should be some internal contentment. Am I ready to do this even if I don't get any recognition? Even if I don't get any fame? So if something is really important for us, we may decide to pursue it. But pursue it as a hobby then. Don't make it your career. Don't make it your vocation. And if in future some opportunities open, that time we could make it into our career also. So if I'm going to do this, only if I'm going to get famous because of this, I'm going to become wealthy out of it, then we have to have a sense of proportion. If I'm not getting internal contentment in it so much, then okay, maybe this is not the area, I have to look at some other area of my life. Ideally speaking, we would like to be at the intersection of these two, where we also have we are content and we are also competent. Okay? Thank you very much. Shrila Prabhupada ki Jai, Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki Jai, Nitya Gaur Premanande. So, what I read today, we read that one prayer that is from this book, Prayers Inspired by Bhagavad Gita. So each chapter is one word, one beautiful picture of Krishna, one verse poetically rendered, and the prayer based on that. Like that, there are 122 prayers. This can be a very